Here's an update to the sugar apple approach I did on my Cherimoya rootstock, which is about 3 years old. The sugar apple is a seedling, barely a year old, very thin branches. Here's the result after a few months of healing. I notched the sugar apple here to see if the leaves would wilt, and they didn't, which is a good sign that we have a nice connection here. The callus tissue continues to grow, and look how thick the sugar apple seedling is above the graft. This is the trunk of the sugar apple. It's now about a year old. The original seedling didn't have much material to work with, which is why I did the approach graft. And what I'm hoping to do here is, once this thickens up a bit more, I'm going to cut back the Cherimoya rootstock at the graft point. For now, I'm going to cut here, and in no time, the sugar apple will match the thickness of the trunk here. I'm going to go ahead and detach the sugar apple from the Cherimoya and trim a little bit of the Cherimoya off here as well. I used the remaining trunk and this little bread tie here just for stability. There is another spot from where I did another approach graft at the top. I'm not going to cut the Cherimoya yet. I'm going to let this grow a little longer, and then we'll see which point I'll cut the Cherimoya at. And here I noticed the sugar apple started to root into the Cherimoya pot. Good root system on the seedling. The Cherimoya is hardier than the sugar apple, so this should help me leave the pot out just a little longer. The sugar apple is a little more tropical than the Cherimoya and requires more heat, but it's also precocious and is known to flower at 2 to 3 years in the right climate, of course, versus the Cherimoya, which can take longer. I'm going to start rubbing the Cherimoya buds off just to redirect the energy into the sugar apple. We'll eventually stake this. I'm not going to do it right now. It's very cold outside and I don't want to go into the shed to get a stake right now. But yeah, so this should catch up to the rootstock in no time, and hopefully we'll see some flower buds within the next year or so. In theory, I'm growing in a pot and I live in a temperate area. But here you go, the sugar apple on Cherimoya and the sugar apple seedling side by side. And here is where I'll most likely be cutting the rootstock in the future. I'll post an update when I do this. So there you have it, a successful approach graft, aka piggyback graft, of seedling onto an older rootstock.